This is our case study as part of our mergers and acquisition series. In this case study, we're talking about a spinoff that we managed. Huge project, a lot of moving parts. Previous sections, we covered the timeline, we covered due diligence, we covered governance. In our last chapter, we talked actually a lot about implementation and some of the high-level challenges. In this section, we're going to talk a little bit about our secret sauce. We say this a lot, but we know there's curveballs. If you think you're doing this process and you could just remotely manage everything and you could just click a button and let some automated process handle the domain switchover, handle the Outlook reconfigurations, handle everything with OneDrive, in our opinion, that's wrong. And our approach to this, no matter where you are in the country or the world, is boots on the ground. So, Beju, let's talk in this section about sort of the last chunk of this process where we are sending people across the country to go to these offices and touch almost every computer to make sure everything runs smoothly. So talk us through kind of your approach to that, what you saw, how you envisioned it, and then what was it like getting all these people to work?
Yeah, so this company, they have where every other Friday is off. So we took advantage of one of those weekends to give ourselves 3 days to do this migration. And like you said, Curveballs, our plan was to use ImiBot to do a lot of the work for us. Unjoining from Intune, uninstalling all their security software, installing our software, rejoining to our Intune. Unfortunately, it did about 70% of the work. Okay. And thankfully, we had a lot of both remote and people on the ground to touch all the computers, because it ended up where we needed to visit all the computers, because myself and one of my colleagues went to East Coast, and then we had about 7 or 10 people who visited the office here, maybe more.
Yeah, that's right, in Torrance.
And then we had another 10, 15 remote folks, because in the East Coast site, they had about 250 computers. On this West Coast office, they had about 600-700 computers. So there were a lot of computers that we had to touch. But essentially what happened on Thursday night, we told the large company, send the command to allow us to uninstall your software, like turn off the locking mechanism. And then we kind of got started, early Friday morning. We really wanted to automate as much of this as possible, but that did not work out so well. But, thankfully we had a kind of contingency plan of having a lot of people ready to jump into action. We were able to push out our remote software to all the computers. That at least gave us the ability to kind of connect in and do some of the work remotely. But a lot of times there were computers behind wasn't turned on, or the remote software didn't get deployed, and we had to actually go to that computer and install or reconfigure it. And we definitely ran into challenges, with the whole ERP system move. That was in and of itself quite a task. We also ran into challenges where the other company's security software wouldn't uninstall. They had kind of two pieces of security software. One was more of a application whitelist blacklist, and then the other one was their EDR. The application whitelist blacklist would block our software. Mm-hmm. So we had a manual uninstall thumb drive that we would walk around and put into the computers to actually uninstall it. It was kind of a pretty long, arduous process. I remember when I went to the East Coast, there were 3 days where I just didn't, we were there for probably 12, 15 hours, just sitting in the server room, working through all the issues that kind of popped up. Of course, the customer was very eager and nervous. Is this really going to work? Mm-hmm. Are people going to be able to come in on Monday and start working? So there was a lot of trepidation there.
Right. Usually these things, you go in, when you're planning these things, you have a sense like there's going to be some curveball we're not ready for. You kind of account for that. That's why we have people on the ground. I think this was the only instance of all the case studies where you have to call in reinforcements. Because I do think on some point on Saturday, you were just like, oh, we need anyone who could work over the weekend to work over the weekend. And I worked that project. So then I had nothing to do with this until the curveball hit. And you walk us through that kind of what you found and thought.
On Friday, we realized that ImiBot's not going to do enough. And we were going to need all hands on deck, get this customer, migrated. And it's like touching 1,000 computers, maybe not physically touching them, either remoting in or walking up to them, like getting them going, keeping a spreadsheet of like what's been migrated, what hasn't been migrated. The process itself took 30 minutes a machine. So it was definitely a huge right-click effort. Like Avi said, I had to put out the bat call Friday night saying, anybody that can work, we need you Saturday and Sunday. And thankfully, people stepped up. So I know some people they started a little later, they came in a little, whatever, they had to leave early. But at the end of the day, we kind of rallied and we made it a successful migration. I know when I walked into the office, they wanted us to be in early because whenever that shift starts, I think I came in at 6 or 7 a.m. We were kind of expecting a barrage of people, attacking us saying like nothing works. But thankfully, there were, of course, challenges come Monday, but 90% of the people were, they just sat at their desk, typed in their new password, opened up their Outlook, opened up their Teams, they were able to access the ERP system. Everything just kind of worked smoothly.
Yeah, like we talk about this all the time, but it's like when you're in the planning phase and the due diligence phase, you're just working with key stakeholders.
Right.
But like the end users cannot be forgotten in this process.
Right.
And it's really important that the service they get is almost as good as or the same as you provide the stakeholders in terms of detail and just their overall ability to work in their experience. And that's why boots on the ground is huge for us. Just kind of wrap it up. We had a timeline. We had 9 months where they were paying almost $500,000 a year for this TSA. Did we come in 12 months? Did we meet the deadline?
So they ended up extending it for 1 month. It wasn't our fault. It was the accounting finance team needed the migration to happen in the first week or two of August as opposed to July. But we did end up saving them 2 months of the TSA. They actually told me in their budget, they had budgeted 12 months of this TSA cost. So the fact that we were able to get them migrated to, earlier than they thought was possible was a real resounding success. The fact that they were able to all come in on that Monday and pretty much work. There were some computers or there were some people that we didn't even know about came out of the woodwork, but overall it was a resounding success for this business.
Yeah, and I think the one of the takeaways I would say is like sometimes a merger and acquisition is like the stealth operation where you have like 3 right-click experts who can manage the whole thing. I think what's unique about right-click and our size is that we are situated, if it's a stealth operation and you just need 3 of our best and brightest to kind of do the due diligence, do the implementation, a couple guys go boots on the ground, we can handle that. But on the flip side, if it's a major task that has thousands of computers, where you need people all over the country, you need a larger team that could touch those computers, we could also accommodate that kind of a request, project, merger, acquisition, spinoff. So we're uniquely situated in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a little bit of our special sauce is we have that flexibility where this was a ton of work for Christian and I on the first, because we kind of got engaged. We first met this customer in January. We really got engaged with them February. And then we did our first migration in May, our next one in August. The weight of the world was on our shoulders because the customer was really relying on us to make sure this spinoff goes well. Because obviously they had a lot of money riding on it to get out of the TSA early, but there was just a lot to do. There was a lot of moving pieces. There was a lot of working with the larger company, working with the spinoff company, working with limited set of tools and the change board. And they had another company that kind of helped with some of the networking stuff. So it was a very large task that we were handed, or a large project that was handed to us.
It taught us a lot, and I think it battle hardened us a lot. Definitely. In terms of like what we could do, what we know we can do. That was the end of this chapter, but anything you would like to say to anyone who's about to be involved in a merger, acquisition, or spinoff?
Yeah, I mean, definitely give us a call. Put something in the comments if you have questions. We're happy to tell you more about it on the phone or on a Teams meeting. When we went into this project, probably a little big for us, to be honest with you, but through determination, grit, and having a great team like Avi, who just came on the whim, we made it happen.
Reach out to us. We're happy to help wherever you are in your merger, acquisition, spinoff process.